Hello everybody, this is Mr. Rob and welcome back to episode number 75 of the Cleveland Spiders franchise here on MLB The Show 21. And today we're going to do a little bit of a playoff preview before the playoffs start next week on Monday. And I say we'll kind of just review all the teams, how they got here, what's their strengths, weaknesses, players to look out for, matchups to look at, as well as I'm going to give you my predictions for the postseason. So if you're excited for this one, make sure you drop a like and subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. Now, if you saw last episode, the lockout did end, and so we are back to playing baseball, but it is the playoffs. So the regular season is complete. It is stopped at about 61 games for some teams, and we're just going to jump right into the playoffs. So I did reveal the bracket last episode. I did reveal to you guys as well how the playoffs will go down. So before we get into it, give the teams one final weekend of preparation before it begins. We are going to take a look at each team. So I'm going to go through the teams in the playoffs and show you their roster, show you their strengths and weaknesses, like I said, and we will discuss them more in depth. So give me 1 second and I will jump to the teams. All right, so the number one team in the playoffs starting off in the American League is the Cleveland Spiders. Yes, your Cleveland Spiders did nail down the 1 seed. They finished the shortened regular season 36-24, and that was enough to net them first in the American League. Now, their strengths as far as how they got here is I'll scroll down the roster while I'm talking about this, but their strengths, their contact hitting. We hit 253 as a team this season, which was 9th in the American League. And we also were very good at saves, so when we got ahead late in the games and we had a save situation, we didn't blow it. We had 22 saves of our 36 wins, which was tied for 3rd in the American League. As far as our weaknesses, one of your weaknesses you'll be surprised of seeing is the pitching. We actually ended up with a 3.78 ERA, which is 15th in baseball. And if you've been familiar with the Spiders for the past couple years, their pitching has been dominant. So to see them at the 15th spot, that is a little worrisome. Yes, we don't have Shane Bieber. We don't have him for the playoffs either. So that's also a little unfortunate. It's not going to help us, but you got to be able to adapt. Also, not the best power-wise. We hit 69 home runs, which is 18th in the majors, and a part of that's because we didn't have Franmil Reyes for a lot of it. He just recently came back from injury, so he will be good to go for the postseason. But a couple players to look out for. No Bieber, so the starting man is going to have to be Aaron Savali. He is going to lead us into the postseason. He is our ace, and he's played really well. He's top 5 in the American League with his 8 wins and 2.52 ERA. So he's definitely someone to anchor our rotation. Our best hitter will be Jose Ramirez, who didn't have the best shortened season, only hit 237 in his 51 games, 10 home runs. But our best, I would say arguably our best player has been the former Giant, Donovan Solano, who in this season is first with the Spiders. He hit 338, which was 2nd in the American League. So Donovan Solano has been a good addition. And I do think the Spiders, despite not having Shane Bieber, can do some damage. The 2 seed in the American League will go to the Oakland Athletics. They were able to nail down the 2 spot with a record of 35-26. So they only finished a game and a half behind us. Now, their strength is their runs and their batting. They've scored 295 runs, which is 2nd in all of baseball. They hit 254 as a team, 1 point higher than us, so they are in the 8th spot for that. And their pitching is pretty solid, 3.58 ERA, which is 10th in the majors. Now, the Oakland Athletics, I would say, is a surprise team as the 2 team in the American League. But they really don't have any weaknesses. I would say their biggest weakness is their blown saves. They have blown 11 saves this season, which is tied for 23rd. And their closer is Jake Diekman, so he's not somebody who is going to wow you. They've had some problems with the bullpen. As you can see, Trevor Rosenthal also hasn't worked. So I do think the Athletics are vulnerable. I know they're a 2 seed, but not entirely sure if I fully back them. They've been led by Matt Chapman, who's had a very good season, 302. 11 homers, 41 RBIs, arguably his best season to date. They also do have Matt Olson. They are a top 2, the Mad Attack out there in Oakland. He hit 267, 9 home runs in his own right. But I do believe the Athletics are a team that can cause some damage. They're anchored in the rotation by Chris Bassett, who also had a phenomenal season at 2.30 ERA of his own with 8 wins. So he is definitely overachieved. This has just been an overachieving team, and I wouldn't count out the Athletics in the playoffs. The third team in the American League is the New York Yankees. They finished the regular season with a record of 34-27, and they're what you expect the Yankees to be. They destroy the baseball, especially playing in Yankee Stadium. They hit 269 as a team. That is first in all of baseball. They scored 299 runs, which is also first in baseball. And they hit 82 home runs, which ties them for 5th in baseball. So definitely their strength is their bats. Their weakness is the other side, the pitching. Their pitching has not been good. 3.91 ERA, which is 17th in baseball. They gave up 259 runs, which just puts them at 22nd. And home runs allowed. Yes, they do play in Yankee Stadium. They've hit 82 home runs, but they've given up 84. So they've actually given up more home runs than they've hit, and that puts them tied for 26. They are anchored, though, by Garrett Cole, the star pitcher who runner-up last year in the Cy Young voting behind yours truly, Shane Bieber. He's put together another dominant season, arguably his best. He just doesn't get the run support, but 2.08 ERA. No Aaron Judge, though. He will not be back in time for the postseason. He tore his ACL, so the Yankees will have to do this run without arguably their best hitter. But they do still have DJ LeMahieu, who's putting on a phenomenal year, 320 hitting, and kind of like his shortened year in 2020. And then Giancarlo Stanton, the former NL MVP, he's hitting 235, which is lower for him, but he does have 14 home runs, which if you look at his home runs per at-bat, that's just slightly worse than he was last year. So Giancarlo is still hitting the long ball, just not for average. And they still have other players like Luis Severino. They still have Aroldis Chapman, who is a good closer, probably having his worst year, as he's already blown 4 saves, but still a dominant closer when he is on. So the Yankees definitely a scary team to face. The 4th seed is the Chicago White Sox. All right, this is a team that made a big splash in the offseason, obviously with the big signing of Freddie Freeman. And they finished this year 35-24, which is only a half game behind us for the 1 seed in the division. So they're only a half game from being the best team in the American League. And honestly, I can see the White Sox being our competition if they do win that 1-game wild card gauntlet. Now, their strengths, they also hit the ball pretty well, which you expect when you had the 2-time NL MVP. They scored 257 runs, which ties them for 9th. They hit 81 home runs, which ties them for 7th. But they do allow quite a bit of home runs. They allow 69 home runs, which ties them for 17th. Arguably, Freddie Freeman hasn't had the best year since coming over. He's had probably his worst year, hitting 252 with 11 homers. But, it is playoff Freddie. He does have experience, so I would not count him out. Yasmani Grandal, we've seen him be a thorn on our side. He is an all-star catcher. Hasn't played like it this year, but he's definitely another good hitter. Lucas Giolito, he's a good pitcher. He's kind of been up and down. Hasn't fully reached his 90 overall, I would say, A potential so far in this series. But another pitcher we struggled last year in that 1 wild card game with. So we've seen Giolito. He can be dominant. And they do have Liam Hendricks, who is a very good closer. He's converted 17 of 20 save opportunities. So you don't want to fall behind the White Sox, I would say. Definitely a dark horse team in the American League. The last team that made the playoffs in the American League was the Los Angeles Angels. They finished 32-29, which is actually not a good postseason record. But overall, the American League wasn't as strong as the National League. Now, what got the Angels to the postseason? Finally, it seems like, well, their batting average, 260, which 3rd in the American League, or 3rd in baseball, excuse me. They scored 261 runs, which puts them at 7th. And their slugging percentage, they hit .434 as a slugging team, which is 5th in all of baseball. The weaknesses, the pitching. The pitching is not as good. ERA of 3.98, which is 20th. And then runs allowed, they've around 262. So they've scored 261, and they've allowed 262. That puts them at 23rd. So what the stats tell me is a lot of Mike Trout, which is what you expect from the multi-time MVP. It's exciting to see Trout back in the postseason. He's put on a tear, 16 home runs already, 347 batting average. He's almost already hit his total from last year. As you can see, his home runs per at-bat is at 12, which is very, very impressive. So Trout Wood's probably on his way to another MVP season. We will have awards, so MVP will probably go to Mike Trout. He is part of the reason why their offensive averages are so good. But they do have Anthony Rendon, who's not playing the best, but David Fletcher has helped. The hitting 323, so that's 3 straight years of 300 plus hitting from Fletcher, so he's a solid building piece. And then you do have Shohei Ohtani, who's pitched 287. He's having a good year this year after a bad year in terms of pitching. And then in terms of hitting, he's hitting 394 in the 12 games that he has played, which is not a lot, but it's good. They also will be getting Keon Kayla back, who fractured his wrist, but he is their one roster move that the Angels are making. They're allowing the former Padre to come back, who hasn't had a good start, I would say, so far, but Keon Kayla does have postseason experience. So the Angels don't know how far they can go, but they did crack the postseason. Now on to the National League side of things. This is where the strength of baseball has been. And the number 1 seed in the National League is the New York Mets. This is a scary baseball team. They finished the season 43-17, easily the best record in baseball by far. They just they're loaded. You're looking at their roster. They made a lot of moves in the offseason and free agency to help. Their batting average 267, that's second only behind the Yankees. They scored 283 runs, that's third, and their ERA is a 3.04, which is second only behind the team you'll see in just a minute. If I did have to pick a weakness with the Mets, there's really no weaknesses with this team, but they did ground into 43 double plays, which is 28th in baseball. That's nitpicky, but this is a scary team. They have one of the best, if not the best, starting pitcher in baseball, Jacob deGrom, 1.76 ERA through his 12 starts. That is incredible. He is on pace to, I would not be surprised if he was voted the Cy Young. There will be no Trevor Story, though. He did tear his ACL. He was one of the big moves that the Mets did make in the offseason, signing the former Rocky, and he was hitting 328. So this could be a big blow, I would say, for the Mets. They are stacked, though. They still have Francisco Lindor, who's hitting 322, which is very, very good. Edwin Diaz, as a closer, has been a dominant job, has yet to blow a save. And then Jeff McNeil is hurt, but he will be coming back, so the Mets will get a big addition into... They did lose Story, but they will be getting McNeil back. And their other big signing was Chris Bryant, who is hitting above 300. So the former NL MVP hitting like he did when he won the award. So Mets, very scary team. The number 2 seed in the National League is a team that you can't count out, though, obviously, in the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, the Dodgers have won the World Series the past 2 years, so they are still the team to beat. They finished 37-25, which is still a good record. And their strength was their pitching. 2.82 ERA. That is first in all of baseball by over 0.2 points. That's very impressive. They have a very good rotation. They are hard to get hits off of. And they struck out 499 batters, which is 7th in the MLB. Their weakness is a little bit of surprise. Their batting average this year was not very good. They hit 244 as a team. That's 21st in baseball. And their slugging was only a 403, which is 19th, which is not what you expect when you're anchored by Mookie Betts, who is committed to the Dodgers. Only hit 255 this year, which is not like Betts. There will be no Trevor Bauer. That is something I'm just going to keep it realistic. Trevor Bauer will not be on the postseason squad, so don't expect to see him. But Cody Bellinger, another good player, hit 288, a former MVP of his own right. Clayton Kershaw, though, is still anchoring that rotation at 34 years old. He is still killing it, pitching a 166. That is a career best at the age of 34, so that's still very, very scary. Walker Buehler, a dominant number 2. He's a 207. That's another career best. And then at 3, you still got Julio Urias. So that is a solid trio to have to face. And that trio could propel them to a 3rd straight World Series title. We'll have to wait and see. The 3 seed in the National League is the Chicago Cubs. They did make it out of the National League Central. The Central was arguably the worst division on all baseball, but still, the Cubs are a decent team. 33-26. They're a good pitching team as well. That's what got them to the dance. 3.32 ERA as a team, which is 5th in baseball. And they allowed only 63 home runs, which is tied for 7th. And they hit 90 home runs of their own, so they could hit the long ball, which put them at 2nd in the MLB. The weakness, though, is batting average, which is they hit the ball far, but when they don't hit the ball, they don't hit the ball very well. So they had a 241 batting average, 24th in baseball. Their top player is Wilson Contreras, their catcher, who only hit 171. So maybe more of a defensive catcher, but still, that's not what you expect out of him. That's kind of alarming. Their big acquisition, they did lose Chris Bryant and company, but they signed Carlos Correa away from the Houston Astros, and he's hit 321. He's had his best year at the plate. He has been the offense that has helped spark the Cubs to this spot. They still also have Javi Baez, who only hit 218, and their pitching leader is Kyle Hendricks, who has a sub-2 ERA in his 12 starts. The Cubs, still a scary team. I don't think they're on the same level as the Mets and the Dodgers, but also a team you can't count out. The wild card spots. The first one, the San Diego Padres. They made the playoffs as the 4 seed. They finished 35-24, and honestly, that is pretty impressive because if there's any team in baseball that's got hit hard with injuries this year, it's been the San Diego Padres. You can see them all on the screen as I scroll. They finished 35-24. Their strength, their pitching, they do, play in Petco Park. 326, third in baseball. They only allowed 450 hits, which puts them 5th. Their weakness, their slugging percentage. They do play in a pitcher's park, and they've had some injuries in that regard. They're 21st in baseball in that spot. But they are getting a nice addition with Fernando Tatis coming back. He has been out with a broken shin. He will be back. He will be activated for the postseason. So Tatis will give them some help to go along with Manny Machado, who's hitting 343, which is best in the National League. So that's a nice top 2. And then they also have 3 dominant pitchers. Blake Snell, 2.12 ERA. Mike Clevinger, 2.25 ERA. And Dinelson Lamet, 2.63 ERA. You got to have pitching to get through the postseason, and the Padres do have that, so you can't count them out. And then Yu Darvish is pitching 286, so don't count the Padres out just because they're in the wild card. The team they'll face in the wild card is the Philadelphia Phillies. They are the final team to make the postseason. If you remember at the beginning of the season, the Phillies were the last team. I think they started like 15-1. They were the last team to lose a game, but they've gone to a 35-24 record, so they've slowed down a little bit. The Phillies, they're good at hitting. 267 runs scored this year, which is 6. And they've hit 61 home runs. Well, they've only allowed actually 61 home runs, so that's tied for 3rd. So they have it good on both sides. Their weakness, they don't strike out many batters. They've struck out only 449 batters. That's 17th in all of the bigs. They're anchored by the former MVP Bryce Harper, who's gotten his average back up to 307 for the first time since 2017. And then they have Aaron Nola as a solid pitcher, who's pitched 271 for them. And then JT Realmuto, the best catcher in baseball, only hitting 228. So you would like to see him, especially being a 90 player, to hit above the 250, at least the 250 line. But those are the teams that are in the postseason. Now that I've run through all the teams, I want you guys to let me know down below which team do you think is the scariest. But I'm actually going to make some predictions. I'm going to show you my playoff prediction. So let you know what I think is going to happen in this postseason. So I will pull that up. So on the screen, you can see my postseason predictions. I've actually gone ahead and created a little bracket for you guys. Thought this would keep it kind of fun, but this is what I think will happen. I do have the Los Angeles Dodgers winning the World Series. If you go back to the spring training episode, I did predict that it would be the Dodgers and the Spiders in the World Series, so I'm going to stick to my prediction. We'll start off in the wild card rounds. I do see the Chicago White Sox and the San Diego Padres winning their matchups, and I think they'll win them pretty single-handedly. Maybe the Angels can steal one from Chicago, maybe steal one, but I don't think they'll win a series. And I think the Padres, they're just so much better than the Phillies. We will actually simulate those wild card games this episode too, because I want to see who the Spiders will take on in the ALDS. Next, we do have the American League Divisional Series, which for us in the American League, I had the 1-seed Spiders beating the Chicago White Sox in a 5-game series. I think the White Sox could be a very scary team to face. I would not be surprised if they beat the Spiders, but I do think the Spiders have played very well this season despite their struggles recently. And I do think the additions of Morton and Archer could help them out in time for that postseason to help anchor that rotation. On the other side of things, I do have the 3-seed Yankees beating the Athletics 3-1. I don't know if I fully back the Athletics despite being the 2-seed. I think the Yankees just have too much firepower for Oakland. In the ALCS, I have the Spiders beating the Yankees 4-2, which is a rematch of last year's ALDS, where we beat the Yankees 3-1. I do think we can stop the Yankees better than the White Sox, so it does move us on to the World Series, which is what I originally predicted, and you kind of have to go for it here. On the National League side of things, I do have the Padres beating the Phillies, which moves them on to face the Mets, and I do think the Mets could beat the Padres 3-1. I think they'll win pretty convincingly. I do think the Padres have a scary rotation, but I do think the Mets just have too much firepower. They also have a pretty solid rotation. I think they can stump the Padres, especially if Fernando Tatis has any sort of rust coming back from that broken shin. On the other side of things, I had the Dodgers sweeping the Cubs. I just don't think that the Cubs can keep up with the Dodgers. They've had dominant pitching, and I don't think the Cubs have enough offense to keep up with the Dodgers. So that makes it Mets-Dodgers. Now, I think this is the true World Series, is the NLCS. This is the two best teams in baseball going at it, and I had the Dodgers winning a sensational 7-game series, 4-3. I am very inclined. I wanted to pick the Mets to win this series, but I originally picked the Dodgers at the beginning of the season to reach the World Series, so I almost felt inclined to move them on. I would not be surprised if the Mets make it by any means, but I do have the Dodgers coming out on top. That takes us to the World Series. I think it's going to be the Cleveland Spiders versus the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I do think the Dodgers will win 3 straight. No team has done that in quite some time, but if it's going to be a team, it's going to be the LA Dodgers. I have them winning in 6 games and being crowned your 2022 World Series champions. Let me know what you think down below. What are your predictions in the postseason? Who do you think will move on? But we'll end the episode by actually simulating the 2 wildcard matchups. Who will the Spiders be facing in the postseason ALDS round? On the American League side of things, it will be the Los Angeles Angels. They did beat the White Sox. So the Angels, remember, don't mind the record. The Angels will move on to the ALDS. I did have a sneaky feeling they could win 1 game against Chicago, and they get it done 6-3. Ohtani pitched okay, but it was mostly them just getting to Giolito, which we've seen Giolito in the past kind of be hit or miss. So the Angels will be the team that moves on in the American League side of things. On the National League, the Phillies get it done over the Padres, so I'm 0-2 already. So the Phillies move on to the NLDS, where they will face their division rival, the New York Mets. The Padres bow out in 1. It looks like it was Segura, Realmuto, and Jock Peterson who give them the RBIs. Tatis did go 2 for 4. So did Manny Machado with 2 home runs, but he was the only offense in this one. Nola pitched great. Snell did not. So that takes us to our bracket going into the next round. It'll be Spiders versus Angels and Mets versus Phillies. So there go my predictions right off the bat. But let me know what you guys think. That's actually going to do it for this one. I know it's been a little longer than I anticipated, but I wanted to kind of break down the playoffs for you, get you guys excited for the final leg of this series. I'm excited for this. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoy. Remember, leave your predictions down below. Who do you think is going to take the World Series? Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. This is Mr. Rob, and I'll see you in the next one.